everybody, my name is Megan. You're watching Miss Megan Knits. Links to everything I'm going to talk about today will be in the description box below, as well as where you can find me on Ravelry and via email. How is everybody today? Christmas is coming around the corner, and just as I mentioned in a previous video, I don't do gift knits. I do gift knits, as you'll see, but I don't do holiday gift knits, just because it stresses me out so much. I have a much happier time knitting if I can knit for my friends and family throughout the year, as opposed to cramming it all in right before Christmas, especially with my wrists being the way that they are. I still have lots of knitting to show. I've been knitting a lot. I have kind of a new philosophy of knitting, a new way of looking at it. So as you've seen, I've always had a lot of whips. You know, I used to have like 5 slots, you know what I mean? So you have 5 things you could be working on. But now I think I'm changing. I think I'm becoming more of a monogamous knitter. I've been kind of doing an experiment for the past couple of days. I finished up a bunch of projects at once and was left with only one, and really liked having just one thing to work on, one thing to focus on, and I got it done speedy quick. And I was thinking maybe I'd get more done if I was a more monogamous knitter. So I've been working on one project at a time since then, and so far I've been really liking it. But that doesn't mean I don't have a lot to show. I still have a lot to show, especially because at the end I will do a segment on my Christmas stockings that I knit last year, or the year before, I think it was last year, as well as a segment on new yarn I've acquired. I don't usually do that, just because I don't buy yarn a lot, but this past couple weeks I've come into a lot of yarn. Stay tuned. My first FO are the fingerless mitts that I made for my boyfriend Bear. He actually helped me film that segment. He was my cameraman because he had filmed the video we filmed right before that, which was my craft room tour. I'm gonna cut to that right now, so stay tuned. Hey everybody, it's me from the past. I wanted to talk to you about one of my FOs. I'm talking to you about it from the past because I wanted to give it away and I didn't want anybody to miss out seeing the finished product. So here I have my convertible gloves that I made for my boyfriend Bear. I'm super happy with how they turned out. The first one I did was this one, and I made him try it on like every step of the way so I know it fits. And then I followed the same instructions for this one. So the needle sizes I used were US 6, 7, and 8. I used 6 for the cuff, 7 for the fingers, and for the ribbing on the flap. And I used 8 for anything color work, so most of the mitt. This is Fair Isle Colorwork. These are the Hastings mitts patterned by Tracy Miller. I heavily modified them. They were originally either fingerless mitts or mittens, and I turned them into convertible gloves. The chart for the mitten flap is my own design. It is on my Ravelry page if anybody wants it, up there for free. It was just a little doodle I did. I actually did a whole bunch of doodles and made Bear pick from them because I wasn't sure how I wanted to do them in tops, and he helped me out. They have complete full thumbs. I'm going to try this one on. I did tack down my floats. I know last podcast I showed this. I got my pinky stuck on a float, and I did go through with a spare yarn and tack everything down and then wove in the end, so it should be fine. But they have a flap, and you can undo them. You have a full thumb. I'm very, very proud of these. I had never done glove fingers before. I had learned how to do it from a class with Marley Bird on Craftsy, or now Blueprint, called Mittens and Gloves Galore. I used kind of her technique for the fingers as well as her technique for the convertible flap. I picked up from the back and cast on and then knit the flap with my decreases as well. The yarn I used was Knit Pick Swish Worsted. The green shade is Jade, and the orange shade is Clementine. I got it during their big yarn sale. It's actually really cheap, and it's a good quality. It's a superwash wool. I believe it's a superfine superwash merino, which is very fancy. I don't know if he knows what all that means.
Very fancy.
He's holding the camera today.
I'll just assume it means very fancy.
It means very fancy. It's very soft. Merino is a sheep.
Is it like
soft.
the Porsche of yarns?
Not quite a Porsche of yarns, more like
Mustang.
This is Knit Picks, so we're not talking Porsche or Mustang. We're talking more like
Volkswagen Beetle.
Super fancy Toyota.
Super fancy Toyota. So like
they're on.
What about a Lexus?
A lower end Lexus.
Texas. Okay, so not that fancy.
Well, I'm telling you, it's not like super fancy. This doesn't have cashmere in it, you know, but it's a merino. It's from Knit Picks. It was a good price. It's a good yarn. It's a good middle of the road kind of yarn. Fancier than what I usually use for sure, because I usually use, you know, Volkswagen Beetles.
Volkswagen Beetles for yarn?
Yes.
You break them down?
Yes, I usually use Volkswagen Beetles and those big vans, the hippie stuff in
The
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Even though those are really expensive now.
Oh, well, they weren't back in the day, were they?
I don't know. I wasn't alive then.
I wasn't either. I thought you'd know you're a car guy, sort of, right?
Yeah, kind of, sort of.
Okay, anyway. That has been my talk about these mitts. And I will take it back to Megan from the future / present / past for you. So I hope you enjoyed that little bit. He did provide some snarky commentary, but I like that, you know, so I hope you guys enjoy it too. That was my first FO. My second FO is also a gift for my boyfriend, Bear. He didn't have a lot of hand-knitted stuff, and so I just knit him 2 things. Finished them both recently. I haven't gifted these to him yet because I wanted to save them for this podcast. I felt like doing 2 segments of giving away separate videos was a little much. I mean, if it has to be done, it has to be done. I'm not saying I'll never do it in the future, but these socks could wait. He has other socks. Not socks that's nice, but he has other socks. So this is one of them. You can see the color jog if I do it that way. Let's hold it this way. There we go. Whew, no color jog. So this is basically a compilation of techniques from the Sock Knitter's Handbook. I used his foot circumference and his foot length, which are the same number, by the way. Is that weird? He has like square feet. Not really square, but you know what I mean. To basically kind of come up with a sock that would fit him absolutely perfectly. And then, sorry if you can hear my dog chewing on a toy in the background. She only chews on her noisy toys when I film. It's the best. I'm not going to yell at her because she's having fun, but if you hear noises, that's why. I interviewed him about his sock preferences, and I basically came up with this sock. It's got a cuff that's about 1.5 inches or so. No leg, just a cuff. He prefers his socks a little bit above the ankle. And then I did, for fun for me, a 2-color heel stitch heel flap. Heel turn, pick up for the gusset. I did a garter stitch selvage. It makes it so easy to pick up stitches, it's ridiculous. And then, of course, a normal gusset down to the toe, and then I did some kind of striping on the toe just to kind of blend it together. It didn't really blend. I wasn't really expecting it to blend, but I figured I would add a little bit of interest. All with a little bit of math. This is a plain old normal toe. I have 2 of them. I've only shown 1 so far, but there are 2. There's a matching pair. Now for the jogless stripes, or clearly I have jogs in my stripes, so it didn't go all that well. I tried 2 different methods. So I tried a video from Webs, which I will link, and I tried a video from Very Pink Knits, which I will link. And both of them seemed like they worked just fine, except I had mostly 1 row stripes, like 1 row here, and then 2 row stripes, and 2 rows in 1 row. And I don't think the jog method worked very well for my 1 row stripes. See, it's worse on that one. This is the Webs one. The Webs one's a little bit nicer, just for my situation. I don't think there's anything wrong with those videos or those methods. I just think they didn't work in my particular case. Now I know helix knitting is a thing, but for a couple of stripes near the toe of a sock that's going to go in your slipper or be worn around the house, I didn't think it was necessary to bust out all the helix knitting strategies, especially because I've never helix knit before. I will learn in the future, but I didn't think it was necessary then. Oh, I told myself I'd bookmark the pages in the Sock Knitter's Handbook that I used. I didn't. But this is the Sock Knitter's Handbook. This is the book I used to make this sock. This book has everything in it except a pattern for a sock. It doesn't have a single sock pattern in here. So if you're someone who likes to follow a pattern, this isn't necessarily the book for you. If you're someone who likes to take your own techniques and mash them together, this book is wonderful. Brilliant. I'm kind of in the middle. Sometimes I like to follow a pattern, sometimes I like to just make things up. So this book has really helped me understand more about socks. It has everything. It has tips on what gauge I should get, which is helpful because this is DK weight yarn. I forgot to mention, the yarn is Knit Picks Swish DK, and the colorway is Serrano for the red and charcoal for the gray. The gray is a little bit heathered. I really like it. But anyway, it's a DK weight, and I wasn't quite sure what kind of gauge I was supposed to be getting. So this book has a section in the front. suggested gauge and needle size, and like yardage yields. So for example, how many yards can you get in 50 grams of sport weight yarn, it'll tell you. It also tells you, for example, for DK weight, you want to get somewhere between 6.5 to 8 stitches per inch as your gauge for a good sock gauge. And it gives a suggested needle size as well. I didn't follow the suggested needle size because I got gauged with a different needle size, but you know, that's what I did. And then they have basically the construction of a sock, a really good detailed how a sock is built, as well as, for example, these are toes for top-down socks. They offer all of these options, so you can pick a toe and just slap it on your sock. Really cool. They have options for heels, they have options for everything. So I used the suggestion for a French heel, which is this page right here. I'm not going to show more than a flash of it because it does include instructions, but it includes instructions for socks between 32 stitches and 96 stitches, meaning that works for socks of all gauges or all sizes of foot. You just figure out how many stitches you need for your sock and then follow that number. Easy as pie. It's really helpful for all different kinds of heels, toes, cuffs, cast-ons. It has all these beautiful cuff options. I actually used a 2-color cast-on, which you can see if I hold it up. That's the beginning. Just to add a little bit of more interest. I did it with a German twisted cast-on, but the book tells you how to do it with a long tail cast-on. My long tail cast-ons are never ever stretchy enough for top-down socks. They just aren't. I don't know what I'm doing. They're fine to knit with, you know what I mean? I use the long tail cast-on all the time for like anything except for anything stretchy because they're never stretchy. And they say, oh, just do it looser, and I can never do it loose enough. So German twisted is my best friend. So that's the socks. Anybody else trying to drink more water? I'm like really trying to drink more water because it's healthy and I don't drink enough water. I mostly drink Coca-Cola. You can tell by my love of Coca-Cola. This is not the only Coca-Cola shirt I own. I would drink 4 cans a day. I need to really drink more water, and you can only drink so much, so that means less Coke. Back to the show. These are the birthday retreat socks, and I'm calling them the birthday retreat socks because I got this yarn for my birthday. This is Premier Wool-Free Sock in the colorway Vegas Lights, and I knit them, or cast them on, because I was going on a church retreat and I wanted something easy to knit on the church retreat, so most of the first sock was knit on the church retreat. The heel is actually Knit Pick Stroll in the colorway Pea Pod. Before I get hate for mixing an acrylic and a wool, they're both machine washable. The wool is super wash here. They'll wash just fine. They definitely feel completely different, like completely different, but it's gonna be on my feet, and can my heels really tell, and does it really matter? The green actually matches this green really well. I was really impressed with that. I love these. They were great vanilla sock knitting. They were great just kind of waiting rooms knitting and retreat knitting and watching TV knitting and stuff like that. So I had a really good time with those. I also, the interesting thing about these socks is I must have little feet. My feet are a normal length, but I had this much yarn left because the yarn came in 50 gram skeins, so I used 2. That's the only amount of yarn I had left after knitting these 2 socks with a 7-inch leg and an inch cuff, so 8 inches total. And my feet are 9 inches long, so I knit the heel to 7 inches, or I knit to 7 inches and cut the heel in there because my heel is 2 inches square. Anyway, how did I end up with this much yarn? I weighed it. If I do a slightly shorter leg, maybe a 6-inch leg, I can make a whole nother pair of socks with these if I do the same thing and cut in the heel with a different color. I'm not sure I want to, because why would I want 2 pairs of socks that are the same? But this isn't even enough for shorties. This is enough for like an actual sock with an actual leg. And I don't know how that happened. I'm making the smallest size for finger weight, it's a 56 stitch sock, and that fit my feet just a little snug. That's how I like them. I think if I made these socks again, I would go up 1 needle size. I know I talked in past 2 videos about my needle size adventure with my sock needles, so I think I would go up to the needle size where I actually get gauge. But other than that, they fit pretty well, and I'm just kind of shocked that I have that much yarn left over. And then of course, since I got a 50 gram skein for the heels, I have a whole bunch of heel yarn left over. So I'm definitely gonna have to do something else with my scraps, but I'm not sure what yet. My third FO is actually something a little bit cute. I am fully willing to admit that I am 21 years old and I still sleep with a teddy bear. Sorry. I also sleep with my stuffed platypus that I made and I've shown in previous videos. Not ashamed, not embarrassed. I just like having something to kind of hold while I sleep. It's just the way my body is positioned. It feels more ergonomic that way. And a teddy bear fits the job perfectly and is adorable. But my teddy bear was naked. And that was a problem, so I had to fix it. Ta-da! So cute, right? Like, it's supposed to kind of flare up. This is a Build-A-Bear size, because she is a Build-A-Bear that I got from Walmart. They were doing National Teddy Bear Day. They were partnering up and selling teddy bears for cheap, so. This is the dress. This teal color, the main color, is Stitch Studio by Nicole Lullaby. The gray color is the Nicole Studio Samples in a sport weight, just kind of gray acrylic. They don't give me any more information than that. And then the speckledy color that is in the stripes, which I love how it came out. And then the ruffle at the bottom is Lion Brand Ice Cream Sprinkles in vanilla. And that was a scrap. So was the sample. They're both scraps. The speckled vanilla is from my first ever pair of socks. That came out way too big. Anyway, this is a scrap from that. So, super cute. I don't have the bear on me. The pattern I used was a free pattern on Ravelry from Lynn Mary Knits. And it is her, what is it called? Teddy Bear Halloween Dress and Hat. So when she did it, she used lilac and black to make a witch's outfit and then included pattern instructions for a witch's hat. So I just did it in colors that were not witch's colors and ended up with a beautiful little dress. And it should fit because it fits another Build-A-Bear that I have owned. I will say about this pattern, a million ends. A million ends. So many ends to weave in because you have to break the yarn for each of these because they don't carry. And then you have ends here and you have ends for each of the shoulder bits, and it's completely knit flat, so it is seamed. I mattress stitched it. Some people have problems seaming. If you do, this is a pretty short seam. It's a pretty easy seam. Oh, and then the top bits are seamed too. I just whip stitched those so they don't look super great, but I figure adult clothing, like real clothing, has seams on the shoulders. So I didn't feel bad about making an invisible seam, you know, because clothing has seams, and that's kind of how it is. And it's for a teddy bear, so the teddy bear's not going to care. But yes, a million ends to weave in. I had a whole, like, handful of ends that I had woven in. So it is a little bit of finishing work, but if you don't mind a little bit of finishing work, it is completely knit flat. So if you don't have circulars, or if you're new to knitting, you want to knit some clothing, but you want it to go super quick. This took me, like 2 mornings and 2 evenings spread out over 3 days. So, you know, 3 days, 2 days of knitting. Not a ton, actually. I actually had other stuff that I was doing those days, so I wasn't just sitting and knitting straight on it for hours at end or anything. It's quick. One thing I would change, and this is in my Ravelry notes, when I tried it on the bear, the skirt was just a little short, and I think I would add another 1/2 inch to this stockinette, to both pieces, because this is knit in 2 pieces, the front and the back. Another 1/2 inch, and it would be absolutely perfect. But it's so squishy, and the yarn I used was so soft, because it's baby yarn, and I just love it. My last FO, oh, that's yarn. I was like, something's on my foot. It was the yarn tail. Is a headband I made using basically some cheap yarn that I had left over and this crochet stitch dictionary. I really like this stitch dictionary. The beginning of it goes over like how to crochet in its most simplest form. And then it has tons of all skill levels stitch patterns. That's the instruction part, but it had all kinds of cool stuff in it. They're all categorized really well, it's organized really well, it's all laid out really well. I picked the tulip stitch, it's on page 74 of this book, and it looks like this. It actually was really easy. It's a 1-row repeat once you get it set up. Super easy, but it looks so much more professional than just like double crochets or single crochets. You know what I mean? It has kind of a shell. It was in the shell section of the book, so it has kind of a shell look to it. It's stretchy, which makes it good for a headband because it won't be like constricting your head and being uncomfortable. I haven't seamed it yet, but it's planned to be an ear warmer kind of headband. A little smaller than my head so that it'll stretch, so that it'll stay on nicely. Yeah, and I left a long tail to seam it with. I'm just gonna whip stitch it together. It's gonna be super easy. This took me like a day, less than a day. I was just looking for something to do. I was itching to crochet because I had done so much knitting, and this is what I felt like doing. The yarn I used, Red Heart Super Saver in the shade Gray Heather. This is old. I got this from a woman who passed away, or a woman whose mother passed away. She knew I knit and wanted it to go to a young person that would use it. So this is one of the results. I think I'm gonna make another headband with another stitch with it as well. I also have another work in progress that is another headband with another stitch pattern from the same stitch dictionary. This one is the aligned puff stitch on page 100. I'm not going to show because they have charts and like visuals that would make it really easy for you to see, and I want you to buy the book, and so does Sarah Hazel. She wants you to buy the book, so I'm not going to show that, but I will show you my finished result. Now this one has a right side and a wrong side, the other one didn't, but I like both sides. So good thing it's a headband. I'll whip stitch it so it'll be reversible and I can wear whichever side I want. But this is the right side. It's just a bunch of puff stitches all in a line. Took me forever to figure out how to get my edges straight. I had to rip it out like 3 times, but I got the hang of it. And then this is the back where you can kind of see the lines between the stitches. And I really like that too. The puffs make it super squishy and super warm, and again, it's a little more professional looking than just a plain old double crochet. I have an idea kicking around in my head for a design of a headband for crochet, and not just one plop and a stitch pattern onto a headband. But I'm thinking of doing a little bit of like a combination of these two. So for example, having the little tulips with a puff in the tulips. Or alternatively, a puff where the tulips join. I'm gonna have to experiment, do some swatches, figure out what I like, what I don't like, but I think that might be coming up. That's an idea I'm having right now. I have so many grand ideas that I never do, so don't hold me to that, but I'm thinking that might be fun. That's probably what my next swatch is gonna be, some experimentation with combining those two into a headband kind of product. And that would be my first ever crochet design because I am still relatively new to crochet. These were my first puff stitches, believe it or not. This yarn is Stitch Studio by Nicole Earthtone. You may recognize it from my Resilience wrap. This is, I had leftover, I had 2 of these left over. So, and here's the ball band, hang on. And for both of these projects, these are both Aran weight yarns. I used a 4.5mm crochet hook because I tend to crochet pretty loosely. When I use a 5mm, it's just too loose. We have a lot of stitches. So I just picked this one up off the bat and I'm liking the results I'm getting. It's worth noting that this headband is a little bit wide. I probably would cut off a repeat if I did it again, but the other one I think is perfect. Now that I've ripped it out and redone it a bunch of times, now it's perfect. I've acquired some yarn. I've been trying not to because I have so much and I need to use what I have, but some of it literally fell into my lap. I'm gonna start with the order I got it in. I'm gonna start with Black Friday sales. Thanksgiving just happened. Hope everybody had a wonderful time. I had a lovely Thanksgiving with my family. I bought yarn on clearance. So AC Moore's clothing. They're having clearance sales. I didn't get a lot of stuff there because most of what was on sale was chenille and most of the rest was sold out. So I like chenille yarn. I don't have anything against chenille yarn, but I don't want a whole stash of it. I want a little bit of it that I can use sparingly. I did get some stuff there. I have a giant box. And this isn't even all of it. Just check to make sure my address wasn't on the box. It's not. It's a box from AC Moore, so AC Moore's address is on the box if you're trying to be a creeper. So the first thing I got were 2 skeins of Stitch Studio by Nicole Storybook Lullaby. This is a DK weight acrylic. It's really soft. It does seem like it has a little bit of a halo. This is the colorway Honeydew, and the other skein I used in Isabella's dress was the colorway Mint. Storybook Lullaby, Stitch Studio by Nicole. I'm so worried about that brand. I love Stitch Studio by Nicole yarns. Like I use them all the time. I really like them. They're inexpensive. They're good quality. So I'm a little concerned now that AC Moore is closing. What's going to happen to Stitch Studio by Nicole? I hope it lives on in some other form that I can purchase. Anyway, I also got some other Stitch Studio by Nicole yarns. This is Paz, and of course the black is not the best color to show you. I don't know how to describe, I don't know what this is called, where you have almost like a roving with another teeny roving spun around it, so it's 2-ply. This is also Paz, so this is what I'm talking about. The black is like that too, it's just black on black, so you can't really see it. It's a super bulky, it's very soft. I got it because I feel like sometimes you just want to make a project quick. You know, like you're working on a really long project for a really long time, and then you're like, I want to knit like 5 more things and I want to do it in 5 days. So the way to do it is super bulky yarn. Even better, super bulky yarn and crochet. But I just bought a bunch of these. So I have one in the colorway black, one in the colorway cocoa. Oh, I forgot to mention, this is 93% acrylic, 7% polyester. I have one in the colorway mauve. I would say mauve, but some people say mauve. And 2 in the colorway plum. And these are 300 gram skeins. I know I really like the super bulky Stitch Studio by Nicole Bell. I was very disappointed none of that was on sale, or none of that was left. So I'm hoping I'll like this too. I really like that they come in 300 gram skeins, and I'm going to double check to make sure that's 300 grams. 280 grams. Close enough. Close enough. I'm trying to think. The bell is 300 grams, and I've made a scarf and a hat with the bell. So maybe it's enough for a scarf. It's definitely enough for a scarf. Or a hat. Or maybe both. But my mom bought 2 of these because she really liked this color. I think she's hoping I'll make something for her with it. So maybe I will, maybe I won't. But this would be a good scarf and hat set, you know? So then, I was disappointed in my AC Moore haul because all I got was that. I decided to go to Michael's. Now this isn't a crazy decision because the Michael's is right across the highway from the AC Moore where I live. There's literally like AC Moore and a Job Lot, and then there's a Michael's and a Target and a sporting goods store and stuff like that. 2 shopping centers right there, 2 craft stores. I went to Michael's. Michael's was having they were having a buy 2 get 1 free on all Loops and Threads yarn. So I'm looking around at the Loops and Threads yarn that was available, and I didn't see the Wool-like, which I was disappointed in because I would really like to pick up some Wool-like. I love that yarn. I did, however, find something I've never used before called Barcelona, and I fell in love with 2 colorways. I looked at this, and I had with me a handy chart from Lion Brand that I'll link to that says how many yards do you need for, you know, X project. So it basically says like hat, bulky, this many yards, right? So I was like, I would like to knit a bulky sweater. And I'm like, how many yards do I need for a sweater? Turns out the Lion Brand thing said I needed basically 3 skeins. I bought 3 skeins. They're different dye lots. I didn't check the dye lots. I was so excited I didn't check the dye lots. And they're self-striping, so alternating skeins might look weird. So I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. I might just make it a casual hanging around the house sweater and have the dye lots be different. You know, like, life's too short. That's kind of where I was. Lots of the patterns that I was looking at did require more yarn than this though, so I probably should have picked up a 4th skein, but they had buy 2 get 1 free, so I bought 3. After Black Friday, I think on the Saturday, we went to the winery that is near us, and we did a wine tasting. It was my first time actually drinking wine in public. I got carded, it was great. And somehow, after the wine tasting, they had a little festival set up at the winery. They had some like agricultural stuff. They had a guy selling salamis and a guy selling oysters, honey, and all kinds of stuff like that, like small local people who were selling stuff. One of the local people is an alpaca farm, and there were alpaca there. Like, I pet the alpaca. So soft, so fluffy, so wonderful. Somehow, Dad was like, oh, well, you know, I really like these fingerless gloves, you know, made of alpaca. Because they were selling mostly stuff made with alpaca. Alpaca socks, alpaca gloves, alpaca hats, alpaca scarves, you know, things like that they were selling. He was like, can you make me those? Well, sure enough, they had yarn. It was kind of in the bottom, in a little bin. And he said, I'll buy the yarn if you make them for me. So I said, okay, absolutely. And then I also threw in a skein for a hat for myself because I'm not stupid. So this is what we've got. It's DK weight knitter's yarn spun in the USA using US grown alpaca and merino natural fibers. Alpaca is naturally warm, soft, and strong, making it a great choice for your next knitting project. This is 185 yards for a 3.5 ounce skein, 2 ply, size 8 to 10 needles, hand wash, dry flat. 70% alpaca, 30% merino. So it does have a little bit of merino, probably so that it doesn't succumb to gravity as much. This is the one I got for my hat. All natural. I think it was hand dyed. It looks hand dyed. And then this is the skein I got for Dad's mitts. It's just a nice natural color. So the yarn is Cave Rock Farm, KAVEROCKFIRM, caverockalpaca.com. So I'll link to their website in the description box below. Alpaca sales, alpaca fiber products, odor-free alpaca manure for plants and gardens. So that's all the yarn I purchased. But some other yarn kind of fell into my lap, and this is kind of a weird scenario that only I would find myself in. Story time. So I'm in therapy, okay, chatting away, doing my thing, telling her about my couple of weeks, working through some issues, you know, therapy stuff. And all of a sudden, I said something about yarn. I think I was talking about the alpaca yarn I was just showed. And my therapist just goes, oh, yarn! That reminds me. And I'm like, what? What? Right? And she's like, I have yarn. I have a bag of yarn. I was like, okay. And she was like, a client came in with a big bag of yarn. I don't know where she got it, but she handed it to me and said, maybe you could use this. And I was like, I don't know how I can use this. And so I went, I'll give it to Megan because Megan knits, right? So that's how I ended up with a bag of yarn. Now, before we go any further, I'm going to state that before I use this yarn, I'm going to wash it. And the reason why I'm going to wash it is because I don't know where it came from, and kind of legally, my therapist can't tell me anything about her client, so I don't want to get any weird germs or anything like that. I don't know. You know, people who go to therapy aren't necessarily crazy people, or bad people, or anything like that, but just because I don't know anything about this person, I kind of want to stay on the safe side. And it came in a patient belongings bag. So weird. So all of this is partial skeins, and all of it is acrylic, I think, pretty sure. But it is good because I like working with small amounts of yarn. I like making little things, like making amigurumis. I like making, you know, scarves with multiple colors. So all these partial skeins are really cool for me. I really like them. And we've got some Nicole yarn. It's a Studio Classic by Nicole. I love this yarn, actually. It's very soft, very squishy, good to work with. Splits a little bit when you're crocheting with it, so I recommend knitting with it as opposed to crochet. If you're going to go with a crochet yarn, I would recommend something else, maybe a Red Heart Super Saver. Not quite as soft, but won't split as much. But this is the colorway Red. I haven't weighed any of these, so I don't know how many grams are in them yet. I'm going to weigh them after I wash them. This is the colorway Black. Same yarn. This is the same yarn caked up in the colorway Black, I believe. Yes, Black. I don't know why there's so much black yarn, but we're going to go on another black kick here. It's Karen Simply Soft Light. This is a, if I can read the label, DK weight. Very soft, very bouncy. I'm really looking forward to working with this, actually. This is an unlabeled brown hank. Probably a Red Heart Super Saver, like an old one. I don't know. I mean, no, it doesn't feel like that. I just felt the Red Heart Super Saver off camera to see if it felt the same. It doesn't. It's more of a scratchy acrylic. I don't think it feels like it has wool in it. I think it feels more like an acrylic, but it's definitely pretty scratchy. And then there was this started project. If I knew what it was going to be, I would finish the project. Oh, it's unraveling. Looks like just some single crochets. It's a rectangle. It might be a baby blanket, but it never came to be. And some accompanying yarn that looks like the same yarn. And then I've got little teeny bits of some things. Don't know what I'm going to do with that. Not going to throw it away, that's for sure. You know me, I save everything. Well, probably not, because I have to wash those, and those would be a pain in the neck to wash. So I do plan on frogging this blanket, I think, to use the yarn, because I don't have a way of continuing the same blanket or giving it to anyone who has a baby, because I don't know anyone who has a baby. So I'm going to frog it and then wash the yarn. And one of the benefits of washing the yarn too is that it'll unkink everything. Lots of these things have been wound up into projects, have been wound up into skeins, they're all kinky. Just to brief what I'm planning to do to wash them, I'm going to unwind them into hanks with my Swift. Or wind them into hanks. I'm going to unwind them from this state and put them into a hank. Tie them off with some scrap yarn, probably some of that yarn that's in there, because you don't want to be wasteful. And then I'm going to hand wash them using some detergent and then hang them up to dry. The reason why I'm going to hand wash is because I'm afraid it'll get tangled in the washer, not because I'm afraid of washing. I do wash my acrylic items in the washing machine. I'm just worried about getting them all tangled up hopelessly and ruining them. So, okay, I promised you I'd talk about my Christmas stockings, so I will get them. Okay, I'm back. So I have 4 Christmas stockings because there are 4 members of my family, me, my mom, my dad, and my brother, that I made, and I'm going to talk about them. So the pattern I used, which I will link, is the Simple Holiday Stockings by Carissa Browning, and the yarn I used is actually Studio Classic by Nicole, that same red and black I showed you from the yarn I acquired, in white. I will note I did change the size of the pattern by doing 2 things. I used a larger gauge, 3 things. A larger gauge, I used larger length measurements, or longer length measurements, and I made a longer I-cord to start at the very beginning. You start at the top with an I-cord and then pick up stitches along the edge to make this beautiful I-cord edge and the loop to hang it with. And I made that longer to accommodate for the larger circumference. If you want the details on exactly what I did to change it, see my Ravelry page, I'll link it. Stitch patterns. So I used 2 books for stitch patterns. The first one I used is the Stocking Knitter's Handbook. At the back, not the very back, but towards the back, you have stitch patterns. So the stitch patterns I used are a variation on the Rick Rack rib, where I only twisted the stitches one way. So it was just kind of a twisty stitch thing. This is the first one I did. A crosshatch lace. And a Pharaoh rib, which is a super easy pattern. It came out looking so good. And then from another book, Easy Textured Knits, although you can find this pattern everywhere, it's really common. It's called the King Charles Brocade. This one came out wider than all of my other stockings, and I used needles 3 sizes smaller than for all of my other stockings. I forgot to check my gauge with each individual stitch pattern, and that's where I went wrong, so they're all a little bit different sizes, but they went just fine. Anyway, I love these. They're knitted so they stretch to fill all your stocking stuffer goodies, and they were super fun and easy to knit. They were quick. Her pattern has 3 variations. I chose to insert the stitch patterns instead because these kinds of things are what I prefer to do. That's going to be all for me today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, evening, night, whatever time it is when you're watching me. My name is Megan. This has been Miss Megan Knits. Links to everything I talked about, description box below, and I will see you all again soon. Bye!